9 Best Foods for Better Memory After 60. You have probably eaten this food at least 1,000 times in your life, and for years, doctors quietly told people your age to avoid it. New research is now saying the opposite, that this same food may actually help protect your memory as you get older. It is not a supplement, it is not expensive, and it is sitting in almost every kitchen in America right now. This video is for general educational purposes only and does not replace personalized medical advice. If you have concerns about your memory or cognitive health, it may be helpful to speak with a qualified healthcare professional who knows your history. Here is something most people never expect to hear. The food sitting in your refrigerator right now might be doing more for your brain than any puzzle app or memory game you have tried. Over the next few minutes, we are going to walk through 9 foods that researchers have connected to healthier brain aging, and we are building toward that one food we just mentioned, the one older adults were once told to limit, which now sits at number 7 on this list for a reason that might genuinely surprise you. So if you have ever walked into a room and forgotten why you went in there, stick around, because by the end of this video, you will look at your grocery list a little differently. Before we go further, it helps to understand why food matters so much to the brain in the first place. The brain uses an enormous amount of energy compared to its size, and it depends on a steady supply of nutrients, healthy fats, and antioxidants to keep its cells functioning properly. As we age, the brain becomes more vulnerable to something called oxidative stress, which is essentially wear and tear caused by unstable molecules damaging cells over time. Certain foods appear to help protect against this kind of damage, while others may support the connections between brain cells that allow memories to form and be recalled. There is also something called neuroplasticity, which refers to the brain's ability to form new connections and adapt throughout life, even into older age. For a long time, scientists believed the brain stopped developing new pathways once a person reached adulthood, but that assumption has been largely overturned. Research over the past few decades has shown that the brain retains a surprising capacity for change well into the 70s, 80s, and beyond, and nutrition appears to be one of several factors that can support this ongoing adaptability. That is genuinely encouraging news, because it means the choices made today, including the foods on today's plate, may still be contributing to how the brain functions years from now. Number 1, fatty fish such as salmon and sardines. Fatty fish like salmon, sardines, and mackerel are often mentioned in conversations about brain health, and for good reason. These fish are rich in a type of fat called omega-3 fatty acids, which are considered important building blocks for the brain. Roughly 60% of the brain is made up of fat, and a significant portion of that fat is the same kind found in fatty fish. Some research suggests that people who eat fish regularly may have better outcomes related to memory and thinking skills as they age, although results can vary from person to person. One of the specific omega-3 fats found in fatty fish, called docosahexaenoic acid, makes up a large share of the fat in the outer membrane of brain cells. Some researchers believe this fat helps keep those membranes flexible, which may support how efficiently signals travel between neurons. This is part of why fatty fish so consistently appears near the top of lists exploring nutrition and cognitive aging, even though scientists caution that fish alone is unlikely to be the single deciding factor in anyone's long-term brain health. Consider the story of a woman named Dorothy, 72 years old, who lived alone after her husband passed away. Her daughter noticed that Dorothy had started forgetting small things, like whether she had already watered her plants that morning, or whether she had taken her morning medication. After talking with her doctor, Dorothy began including salmon in her meals twice a week, instead of relying mostly on processed, pre-packaged dinners that had become a habit during a difficult period of grief. She did not experience an overnight transformation, and no single food can promise that. But over time, she said she felt a bit sharper during her afternoon crossword puzzles, and she appreciated having a new, simple habit that felt like she was doing something proactive for her own brain health, rather than simply waiting and hoping her memory would hold steady on its own. If you're not a fan of fish, some people choose to speak with a healthcare provider about alternative sources of these same fatty acids, since not every option works for every individual, and certain plant-based sources may be worth exploring depending on personal preference and any existing health conditions. Number 2, blueberries and other dark berries. Blueberries have earned a reputation as one of the more talked about fruits when it comes to brain health, and much of that attention centers on compounds called flavonoids, which give berries their deep, rich color. These compounds are believed to have antioxidant properties, meaning they may help reduce the kind of cellular damage that accumulates with age. Some studies have observed that older adults who regularly consumed berries showed slower rates of cognitive decline compared to those who ate them less often, though scientists continue to study exactly how much of an effect this has. What makes berries appealing for many people is how easy they are to add to daily meals. A handful in the morning with oatmeal or blended into a simple smoothie requires very little effort. Frozen berries often retain much of their nutritional value, so fresh is not always necessary, which can make this an accessible option regardless of the season or your local grocery budget. There is a particular reason berries tend to stand out compared to other fruits when researchers study cognitive aging. The specific flavonoids concentrated in blueberries and blackberries appear to be able to cross what is known as the blood-brain barrier, a protective filter that keeps many substances from reaching brain tissue directly. Because these compounds can actually reach the brain rather than staying confined to the bloodstream, some scientists believe they may have a more direct opportunity to interact with brain cells compared to antioxidants found in other foods. This does not mean berries are a cure or a guarantee, but it may help explain why they show up so frequently in nutrition research focused specifically on memory and reasoning in older populations. Number 3, leafy green vegetables like spinach and kale. Leafy greens such as spinach, kale, and collard greens contain a mix of nutrients including vitamin K, lutein, folate, and beta-carotene, all of which have been studied in connection with brain aging. One well-known long-term study followed thousands of older adults and found that those who ate more servings of leafy greens each day appeared, on average, to have the cognitive abilities of someone measurably younger than their actual age. That does not mean leafy greens act like a fountain of youth for the brain, but it does suggest a meaningful association worth paying attention to. Take the example of Harold, a retired mechanic in his late 60s, who admits he never liked vegetables growing up. After his physician mentioned the connection between leafy greens and long-term brain health during a routine visit, Harold started adding a cup of spinach to his morning eggs. He jokes that he still does not love the taste, but he has stuck with it because he likes the idea of giving his brain an extra layer of support each day. His wife noticed that he started keeping bagged spinach in the freezer, specifically, so he would always have a supply on hand. A small but telling sign of how seriously he took the recommendation once he understood the reasoning behind it. Part of what makes leafy greens interesting to researchers is that their benefits do not appear to come from a single nutrient acting alone. Vitamin K supports proper cell function throughout the body, folate plays a role in producing neurotransmitters, and lutein, more commonly associated with eye health, has also been found in brain tissue itself, suggesting it may serve a protective role there as well. When these nutrients work together as part of a regular eating pattern, the combined effect appears more meaningful than any single vitamin taken in isolation, which is one reason many nutrition experts emphasize whole foods over isolated supplements whenever possible. This naturally leads us to a question many people ask next. If vegetables can play a role, what about fats? Are all fats something to avoid, or could some actually be beneficial? That brings us to our next food. Number 4, walnuts and other nuts. Walnuts in particular have drawn interest from researchers partly because of their shape, which resembles a brain, but more importantly because of their nutritional profile. Walnuts contain healthy fats, plant-based omega-3 fatty acids, and antioxidants. Some observational studies have linked regular nut consumption with better performance on certain memory and reasoning tasks in older adults. Almonds and pecans have also been studied, though walnuts tend to receive the most attention in brain-related research specifically. A modest handful, something in the range of about 1 ounce, or roughly a small handful you could hold in your palm, is generally the portion size referenced in most of these studies. Nuts are calorie-dense, so portion awareness matters, and it may be worth discussing appropriate serving sizes with a nutritionist or physician, especially if you have other dietary considerations such as heart conditions or diabetes. Beyond the fats themselves, Walnuts contain a compound called ellagic acid along with other polyphenols that are believed to have anti-inflammatory properties. Since inflammation has become an increasingly important topic in research on brain aging, foods that may help the body manage inflammatory responses continue to draw scientific attention. One long-running observational study following older adults over several years found that those who ate nuts at least a few times each week scored somewhat better, on average, on certain memory assessments compared to those who rarely ate nuts at all. Though as with most nutrition research, many other lifestyle factors were likely involved as well. Number 5. Extra virgin olive oil. Olive oil, particularly the extra virgin variety, has long been a cornerstone of what is often called the Mediterranean pattern of eating, a style of eating associated with numerous long-term health benefits. Extra virgin olive oil contains compounds called polyphenols, which have antioxidant properties, along with monounsaturated fats that are considered heart-healthy. Because cardiovascular health and brain health are closely connected, given that the brain relies on healthy blood flow, some researchers believe olive oil's benefits for the heart may indirectly support the brain as well. Consider Marta, a 68-year-old grandmother who switched from using butter to olive oil for most of her cooking after her cardiologist recommended dietary changes following a checkup. She did not make the switch specifically for memory reasons, but she later mentioned to her doctor that she felt generally more energetic and alert throughout her day, something she attributed partly to the overall shift in her eating habits. Her grandchildren also noticed that Sunday dinners started tasting a little different, and Marta found herself explaining to them in simple terms why she had made the change, which became a small but meaningful way of passing along healthy habits to a younger generation. Some of the most detailed research on this topic comes from long-term observational studies conducted in countries where the traditional Mediterranean pattern of eating has been part of daily life for generations. Researchers in these studies have often noted lower rates of certain types of cognitive decline among populations that consume olive oil as their primary cooking fat, compared to populations relying mainly on saturated fats. It is worth remembering that lifestyle factors such as regular physical activity, strong social connections, and lower rates of smoking are also common in these same populations. So olive oil should be understood as one piece of a much larger picture rather than a single explanation on its own. Number 6. Whole grains. Whole grains such as oats, brown rice, quinoa, and barley provide a steady, slow release of glucose into the bloodstream, which is the primary fuel source for brain cells. Unlike refined grains, which can cause blood sugar to spike and then drop quickly, whole grains are digested more gradually. Some researchers believe this steadier energy supply may support more consistent mental clarity and focus throughout the day, particularly important for older adults whose bodies may process sugars differently than they did in earlier decades. Whole grains are also a source of fiber, which supports gut health, and there is a growing body of research examining what scientists sometimes refer to as the connection between the gut and the brain. While this area of study is still developing, it represents one more reason why a diet rich in whole, minimally processed foods tends to come up repeatedly in conversations about long-term brain wellness. Replacing refined grains with whole grains does not require a complete overhaul of a person's diet. Something as simple as choosing brown rice instead of white rice a few times a week, or swapping white bread for a whole grain version, can be a manageable starting point for many people. Small, sustainable changes like these tend to last longer than dramatic overnight shifts, and consistency over months and years appears to matter far more than short bursts of strict dietary change that are difficult to maintain. Now here is where we reach a food that surprises almost everyone who hears about it for the first time, the one we mentioned earlier in the video. It is not a superfood in the traditional sense, and many people are shocked to learn it belongs on this list at all. Number 7. Eggs. Eggs contain a nutrient called choline, which the body uses to produce a chemical messenger involved in memory and learning. For many years, eggs were viewed with some hesitation because of their cholesterol content, but more recent research has shifted the conversation, with many health organizations now viewing eggs as a reasonable part of a balanced diet for most individuals, particularly when it comes to their contribution of choline, a nutrient many adults do not get enough of through diet alone. Frank, a 75-year-old retired postal worker, had avoided eggs for over a decade after hearing outdated advice from years earlier. When his doctor reviewed his current cholesterol levels and overall health, he encouraged Frank to reconsider including eggs in moderation. Frank started having 2 eggs a few mornings a week, and while he cannot say for certain how much it has helped his memory specifically, he appreciated learning that something he once avoided out of caution turned out to be more nutritionally valuable than he had assumed. He mentioned to his son that it felt strange, after so many years, to realize that dietary guidance can shift as science advances, and that it might be worth periodically revisiting old assumptions with a current healthcare provider. Choline is considered an essential nutrient, meaning the body needs it but cannot produce enough of it on its own, so it must come from the diet. Surveys have suggested that a large percentage of adults in the United States do not consume the recommended daily amount of choline, making eggs one of the more efficient and accessible sources available, since a single large egg provides a meaningful portion of the daily amount many health organizations recommend. As always, individual health circumstances vary, and anyone with specific cholesterol concerns should discuss appropriate egg consumption with their own physician rather than relying solely on general guidance. Number 8. Turmeric. Turmeric, the golden spice commonly used in curries and various dishes, contains a compound called curcumin, which has drawn significant scientific interest for its potential antioxidant and anti-inflammatory properties. Chronic low-grade inflammation in the brain is a topic researchers actively study in relation to cognitive aging, and while curcumin research is still evolving, particularly regarding how well the body absorbs it, some studies have explored possible connections between curcumin intake and improvements in mood and memory-related measures among older adults. It is worth noting that curcumin is not easily absorbed by the body on its own, which is why some people choose to pair turmeric with black pepper, since a compound in black pepper called piperine may enhance absorption. As always, anyone considering adding a new supplement or significantly increasing spice intake for a specific health reason should raise the topic with a healthcare provider first, particularly if they are taking other medications, since certain spices and supplements can interact with common prescriptions, including blood thinners. Some smaller clinical studies have explored curcumin supplements specifically in older adults experiencing mild memory concerns, with a few reporting modest improvements in attention and recall over several months. However, researchers are careful to point out that study sizes in this area have often been limited, and more extensive research is still needed before firm conclusions can be drawn. For most people, incorporating turmeric into cooking, such as in soups, roasted vegetables, or rice dishes, remains a simple and low-risk way to explore this ingredient without needing to consider a concentrated supplement at all. Number 9's dark chocolate and cocoa. Here we arrive at the final food on our list, and it might be the one people find hardest to believe. Dark chocolate, specifically varieties with a high percentage of cocoa, contains flavonoids similar to those found in berries. These compounds have been studied for their potential role in supporting healthy blood flow, including blood flow to the brain. Some research has suggested that cocoa flavonoids may be associated with improvements in certain memory tasks, particularly those involving short-term recall. The key word here is moderation. Dark chocolate is still calorie-dense and often contains added sugar, so this is not a suggestion to consume large quantities. A small square of dark chocolate containing at least 70% cocoa, enjoyed occasionally, is generally what researchers reference in these kinds of studies, not an entire bar eaten daily. Consider Alina, an 81-year-old widow who admitted to her granddaughter that she felt a little guilty enjoying chocolate at her age, as though it were something only for children. When her granddaughter shared some of this research with her, Alina said it gave her a new perspective. She still enjoys a small piece after dinner most evenings, not as an indulgence she needs to feel guilty about, but as one small piece of a broader picture that includes her vegetables, her walnuts, and her weekly salmon. Alina now keeps a small dish of dark chocolate squares on her kitchen counter, and she says the simple ritual of pausing after dinner for a small treat has become something she genuinely looks forward to, rather than something she associates with guilt. It is important to distinguish dark chocolate from many popular milk chocolate products, which typically contain far lower percentages of cocoa and much higher amounts of added sugar and processed milk fat. The flavonoid content that researchers focus on is concentrated specifically in the cocoa solids, so checking the percentage listed on packaging can help identify which products are more likely to align with what was studied in the relevant research. So what does all of this add up to? No single food on this list acts like a switch that instantly protects memory, and no responsible source would ever claim otherwise. What the research consistently points toward instead is a pattern, a way of eating that includes healthy fats, antioxidant-rich fruits and vegetables, whole grains, and mindful moderation with items like dark chocolate. It is the overall pattern, repeated over months and years, that appears to matter most, not any single ingredient acting alone. It is also worth remembering that diet is just one piece of a much larger puzzle when it comes to healthy brain aging. Regular physical activity, quality sleep, staying socially connected, managing stress, and keeping up with routine medical checkups all appear to play significant roles alongside nutrition. Thinking of these 9 foods as one useful tool among several, rather than a standalone solution, tends to reflect a more accurate and balanced understanding of what current research actually shows. One statistic worth remembering from earlier in this video involves that long-term study on leafy greens, where researchers observed that older adults consuming more daily servings of leafy vegetables showed cognitive test scores comparable to individuals measurably younger than their actual age. That single data point captures something important, that small, consistent daily choices repeated across years may genuinely add up to something meaningful for how our brains age. If you found this video helpful, we would love to hear from you in the comments. Which of these 9 foods are you already eating regularly, and which one are you most surprised to learn about? If you know someone who might benefit from this information, whether it is a parent, a grandparent, or simply a friend who is curious about healthy aging, consider sharing this video with them. And if you would like to see more educational content like this, subscribing helps us know that these topics matter to you, and it helps us keep making them. Thank you for watching, and take care of that wonderful brain of yours.